So into the afternoon of real-world examples, getting into the meat of the presentations here. I'm excited to introduce you guys to Bob from Aveva here. Bob, I'll hand it over to you. And like I said, Bob's going to present, and then Logi, and then we're going to pull everyone back together for a panel. So as long as Bob's happy to take your questions throughout, feel free, interrupt him, but there will be a panel established at the end. So go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, what I'm going to be talking about is really the experience that we at Aveva have had with working with SafeNet. Why, for example, we picked SafeNet in the first place to work with. And in order to sort of set the scene, I'm going to talk a little bit at first about Aveva and what we do and what our customers do, because what our customers do and the processes they want to use really determine not only which solutions and products we give to them, but also how we license those products. So, who knows of Aveva? Oh, one or two. Well, yes, I thought you would. Yes. For those of you who don't, let me just take you through some things. We're a leading provider of engineering design and information management solutions to the power industry, the process plant industry, and the shipbuilding industry. So, for example, let me go to this slide. The top 10 global players in the power industry, the energy industry, are our customers. So too for the petrochemical industry, and 9 out of 10 global shipyards are using our products. If we just come back to this slide, when I joined Aveva around 8 years ago, there were about 500 people working there. We've now got upwards of 1,500, where we've got 48 offices around the world, and that's increasing. We're in 30 countries, and we've got 3,000 plus customers. And what's important, particularly for this session, is that of those customers, they are spread from a set that will spend millions of dollars a year with us, right down to those who spend sort of $50,000 or $60,000 a year. And so the way we would want to address those customers and provide software solutions to them will vary, and that's important in terms of licensing. Okay, now our mission is, as you can read on the screen there. I'm not going to read it out to you. I'm sure you can read just as well as I can. But I think it's important to just explain a bit about this digital asset phrase that's used there. At Aveva, what we believe in is that for every physical asset, and by asset we mean a petrochemical plant or a power station or something like that, every physical asset has a digital asset, which means that all the components that make up that asset have all the information associated with them. So that if you start to reconfigure bits of the plant, there is a digital model which you can do it on first before you build it. So that's our mission. And when we talk about making our customers more efficient, more effective, we're really talking about shaving man-hours off the time it takes an engineering contractor to actually design and build one of these power plants or petrochemical plants. We're also talking about making it more efficient for the plant or asset owners to actually get to their data and manage that data through the whole life cycle of the asset. Let me just talk a little bit about what we mean about the life cycle of an asset. If you're going to build and construct a power plant, then the life cycle typically looks something like this. There'll be a feasibility study right up front. There'll be a conceptual design. Then it will get into detailed design, and then you get into the really heavy and expensive stuff where you start to buy materials, fabricate those materials, and construct. Then you commission it, and then you hand it over to the plant owner. Now, up to the commissioning phase, you're talking perhaps about 2 years to do that work. But beyond that commissioning phase, when the asset actually goes live, you may be talking about 40 or 50 years of life. And during that time, of course, that plant will need some modifications, there'll be maintenance contracts placed on it, and so there will be other engineering requirements coming on stream during that whole life cycle. And the ability to get hold of accurate data that was produced during the initial design phase and actually made it into the as-built phase is absolutely crucial. And Aveva's solutions enable the plant owners to actually do that. So our vision then is to be an innovator in the way we're able to help our customers. But more than that, we like to be a preferred or partner of choice to our customers. We don't really see them as, you know, we're just supplying software to them. We much prefer to work in partnership with them so that their problems are, in a sense, our problem, and we work through them together. In terms of the innovation, on the map there you can see a little bit of Aveva's history. We've been around for around 45 years. We've acquired companies en route. We've had some real sort of earth-shattering products that we have developed, been first to market. In terms of the innovation more recently, we've acquired some products up at the top end there, or some companies up at the top end there, which have enabled us to look at some of the engineering processes that go on in our customers' world in a much more innovative way. So all the time, innovation is right at the front of our game, really. So how do our customers work? Well, you know, our customers, they are based all around the world because we're in a global environment now. And what they will tend to do, if we're looking at, for example, the engineering, design and build of an asset, then there will be a prime engineering contractor, and that engineering contractor will have a number of subcontractors and suppliers, and they will be distributed all around the world. And what they will try to do is actually do their work 24 hours a day. So, for example, just up the road here in San Francisco is the headquarters of Bechtel, which is one of the top engineering companies in the world for building these kinds of things. And they have offices distributed around the world, and the sort of projects they do, they'll work 8 hours in one office, and then another office which is coming on stream as one goes down, then picks up. So they will try to do this follow the sun working. And that has implications for licensing of products. They will also have a whole variety of subcontractors, some large, some small, and the way those subcontractors will use our software on a particular project will determine how we choose to license those products to those subcontractors. At the end of it, what are we looking for in licensing? What do we need? Well, what we really need is a licensing system that protects our intellectual property and supports the growth ambitions of the company. We also need to make life much easier for our customers, easy to do business with, and you've heard some talk this morning about sort of customer portals and self-provisioning and that kind of thing, and that's all part of the game. Which brings us on to the real sort of nub of the problem. Why are we working with SafeNet? Because obviously we've had licensing systems in our products from day one, so why are we now working with SafeNet? Well, we're working with SafeNet because our incumbent provider didn't really give us a very good service. I don't think our business was core to their business, and so they would do work for us, and they would provide customized versions of their licensing technology for various requirements we had. But we found that the support for those customizations was very poor. In addition to which, some of the technology which we had in our products from them was end-of-lifed. So there was no support at all. So we very much ran the risk of selling our products only to find that the licensing technology, if it failed, we had nowhere to go to. And it doesn't matter how good our products are, if we can't license them, we can't sell them. And so we're really, really finished. So that was why we moved to SafeNet, because we believed that SafeNet would be much more committed to working with us. And as you'll see in a few moments, that has proven to be the case. And the other thing is that they have got a much better approach to the security thing. Which brings us onto this slide. Security of our software is a real sort of jewel in the crown. We have to protect our software. You heard this morning some talk about, if you like, non-compliance, where customers are using software and perhaps are using an over-entitlement. Perhaps they haven't renewed their contract and they're using more versions of the software than they're entitled to. But a bigger problem for companies like us is outright software piracy, where the license file within the software is tampered with, corrupted, cracked, as the phrase goes, and then you find versions of our software available on the internet at perhaps 1% of the price that we would traditionally sell it for. So it's a big problem. So we're really, really hot on security. And where SafeNet comes in, they have a much more kind of grown-up approach to software security. Our previous supplier of the technology, that wasn't the case with them. Also with SafeNet, they are much more kind of open in the way they embrace security. So in terms of hardware dongles, they will incorporate support for dongles other than their own. They will look at the virtual machine Citrix environment and a whole range of security-type licensing systems which are really, really important to us because we have to look at a whole variety of different ways of doing things. Flexibility. I've already mentioned that our previous technology provider wasn't particularly flexible, didn't particularly want to support us too well. SafeNet, on the other hand, have been so far very flexible, both in terms of how they want to engage with us and how we can perhaps share work that needs to be done. And also in terms of the commercial terms, how we sort of cut up our projects that we work with on SafeNet and how the finances go between the two companies. So flexibility is another tick in the box for SafeNet. Innovation, well, we are all the time trying to be innovative with our customers and trying to show them new things and new ways of doing things. And SafeNet are working very closely with us, or have done so far, to look at innovative ways of implementing licensing technology to support our goals, to support our customers. And then the collaboration piece. I don't really need to say any more about this. SafeNet so far have shown a great willingness to work with us and to really share our pain as we encounter it and to overcome problems together. So what about the licensing models that we are using? Well, the first thing to say, and you've heard quite a lot of talk about perpetual licenses today. We don't do perpetual licenses. All of our licensing is subscription-based. So our flagship, if you like, in licensing is the initial annual model, where a customer pays an initial fee for a right to use our software for a period of perhaps 3 years, if that's what the contract says, and then every year pays a percentage maintenance for upgrades and other support. You can see that our model is very effective in that 70% of our sales, of our revenue, comes from this kind of recurring stream coming from the maintenance and the rental payments. Now, what you're not seeing on there is some of the other licensing models that we are adopting. We've got that sort of ready purpley rental fees there. Within that, there is a standard rental agreement that we will have with a customer, but we've also got token-based licensing, where, as the name suggests, a customer buys a pool of tokens and then starts to burn those as he goes through his project. And with that system, if he runs out of tokens, we will allow him to exceed, so he won't get denial of service, but we'll then settle up the finances at some period after. We also have another system called CALM, which is Client Activated License Management, which is a little bit like token, but the customer calls off a block of entitlement, and whether he uses that or not doesn't matter. He's paid his money, and if at the end of the period, if he hasn't used it, then that's kind of hard luck. The reason we introduced that, it really goes back to something I said a little bit earlier, where we've got these 3,000 customers, but they've all got different requirements, and some are very large and some are very small. And so for the smaller customers, we think this client-activated license management system is more suited to them. They've got more control over their environment, and they may only want to use a product for perhaps a couple of months, and so they'll just call off that bit. Whereas that wouldn't work with the big players, because the big players tend to want to use our products continuously and may choose to combine a kind of initial annual licensing model with a token-based licensing model, almost as a kind of stopgap to sort of top up for peak usage. Challenging times, yeah. Well, the world is changing. I mean, that's been the nature of what we've heard today, and our customers are looking for new ways of doing business in response to what their customers are demanding of them. And so we've got to adapt with the times and look at more flexible approaches, so to introduce new licensing models, new business models, and we'll come on to that in a little bit. Now, what about how we've been working with SafeNet thus far? Well, I've mentioned this team effort. I mean, I can't say strongly enough how SafeNet have really been committed to helping us and walking with us through quite a difficult project, because it's all very well changing the licensing technology in your product, but it's all got to tie back to the back office systems. It has got to tie in with, the license request system, the license processing system, the finance systems, how we bill. And so there's a major change going on at Aveva to redevelop that whole process. And SafeNet are working with us to make sure that runs as smoothly as possible. One of the things that they have been forthcoming with is to look at pieces of the work that perhaps they could do for us. So obviously we've got our own technical team. We're a software company after all. But SafeNet have said, OK, let's see if we can divide this work up. You do that bit, we'll do this bit, and see how it works. Also, the response from SafeNet has been really good thus far. Obviously, with any project, it's very complex, and there will be problems. But by picking up the phone or dropping an email, we've always managed to get fixes from SafeNet. Sometimes it's taken a little longer than we'd wanted, but it's always been forthcoming. There's never been any indication that we're going it alone and that they're walking away from us. So on the commitment front, that they're right behind us. And that's so important for us, because our whole philosophy is around working in partnership with our customers, with our partners, everything we do. So it's really comforting for us to know that our licensing technology provider is shoulder to shoulder with us. Now, what about the future? We've talked about cloud this morning. What do our customers want? This is the interesting thing. If you look at the customers that we traditionally work with, they're very slow to change. They've been in business a long time. They've got ways of working, ways of doing things. They're a little bit suspicious of anything new. Even when Aveva brings out a new product, it won't be taken up immediately, particularly if they're midway through a project themselves. And when you start talking about cloud, they get a little bit nervous in many cases, because to them data security is absolutely paramount, and they worry about the data being somewhere where they can't actually sort of see and touch it. So where we are at the moment, we've got some customers who are asking us questions about cloud and are we going to put our products in the cloud, and others who, when we talk to them, they just don't want to know. They really are saying, we're not ready for that and we're quite happy with what we've got. Now, what Aveva is doing is pursuing cloud. We've got a number of initiatives going on at the moment to look at how we might make best use of cloud technology, which might involve actually putting our applications in the cloud. Probably not all of them, because, you know, going back over our 45-year history, they were built in languages like Fortran and very strong client-server type architectures, and don't readily migrate to a cloud environment. But some of the newer applications, and particularly some that we have come through acquisition, we could easily see those going operating within the cloud. But definitely we're looking at cloud-based licensing for all the reasons that you've heard earlier today. Easy for the customer to use, cuts down all the sort of home office costs. So that's something we are looking at. The other thing we're looking at is mobile applications. Traditionally, we wouldn't even have considered this, and some of our customers are not really warming to it. But you can imagine that if you look at the engineering, design and build of a power station or whatever, there will be times when it would be really, really useful, particularly during construction, to have some of our software loaded on to a mobile application, a tablet. So you can walk around a construction site and you can look at what the model is telling you, drill down and look at all the data associated with it, and actually see the thing physically. So the sort of mobile app world, particularly in the construction phase, is really very attractive. And to be quite honest, that's attractive to many of our customers at the moment. It's also an attractive proposition in a plant operations phase, where somebody working on a live plant a maintenance engineer, for example, can easily pull the tablet out of his pocket, make a few taps on the screen, and pull up some relevant data pertaining to what he's looking at the time. So there is enormous potential for making our applications sort of mobile ready. Lessons learned. I've praised SafeNet quite a lot so far. I'm almost embarrassed. I'm almost embarrassed. What we're doing with SafeNet is a major project with a lot of complexity. Some of the complexities are things like, well, I've already alluded to. We've got to rebuild our whole licensing system from the sort of license request right through to back office and revenue recognition and all that kind of stuff. That's a big job. We've got to build in the capability for new licensing models. You know, some of the cloud stuff, some of the rebuilding this token-based licensing system, which needs a complete rebuild. And the other thing we've got to do, we've got to make sure that we keep our business running while we're doing all this. So we can't sort of switch everything off and say, right, we're taking 2 years out while we replace all our systems. And that's a real challenge. That is a real challenge. And my colleague, James Bidwell, sitting there, has aged significantly since he's been running this project, because he has a daily dose of issues to solve. And I have to say that despite SafeNet's commitment to this project, there are times when things don't quite hook up. So there will be times when there's a miscommunication. There will be times when some product drops from SafeNet haven't quite met the safety criteria or haven't gone through the required level of testing. Very often it's a 50-50 blame, if you want. We haven't specified exactly what we wanted, or it wasn't interpreted in the way we thought it should have been. But the commitment there to make it right is ever present. So it's not a complaint, it's just saying that we're dealing with a very, very challenging transition, and we would expect problems. I mean, we are a software company, so we encounter problems like that with our own software, so we would expect anything like that to happen. Return on investment. Well, it's a bit early to start talking about return on investment for this particular project, because it's still in development. I mean, we have deployed the RMS technology in all of our products now, but it's still bedding in, to use that well-known phrase. It's difficult to say what the return on investment is currently at the moment, but we can say what the criteria are. We want strong security. We want the ability to have a variety of new business models and new licensing models. We want to support our customers. We want to make sure that the systems are robust. We want to exploit cloud technology. All of these things are part of the return on investment that we are looking for. But we don't have any hard numbers at the moment. But we'd expect that to be the case. And really, that concludes a sort of short journey through the relationship between Aveva and SafeNet. I'm happy to take any questions at all, either related to this or anything else you want to talk to me about, really. You can talk to me about theoretical physics if you like, I don't mind. Yes, please. In the environment, well, we're using Navision as our finance system. We've got a CRM system, which is coming from Microsoft. We've got some in-house stuff we've developed. What else is the James we're...
I think there's a lot, we're looking at other systems that we're going to bring in as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was homegrown. So we're using the opportunity of doing this is, as Bob has said, it's not just the licensing, it's the whole soup to nuts in terms of what we do in terms of licensing from the initial request and looking at the back office. Now we've got a BI. Thank you. Where do I hold it? We've got a business intelligence initiative going along as well. So we've taken the opportunity not just, as I said, to do the licensing, but to do everything. And we've started on the road. It's taken 2 years. I think, as Bob has indicated, when I joined the company about 3 years ago, and my initial job was to look at licensing, see what was good, what was bad about it, and there were a number of risks to our revenue. We're growing very quickly as a company, and there was risk there that the systems, as Bob indicated, were end-of-lifed or out of date. So that drove that impetus to change. I think most companies are reluctant to change, and as I said, I mean, in terms of systems, we started the process. It's a 2-year process, but it will take a lot longer to actually go right the way through. And it's acted as a catalyst for actually housekeeping a lot of systems within the company. Thanks.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yes?
To the extent that you've deployed the new licensing technology, can you comment on the transition and how that's gone for both you and your customers?
Well, we haven't had any complaints from customers. We have found some issues ourselves inside during this bedding in process. But so far it seems to have gone okay. There are some challenges in some of the token-based, the usage-based licensing. Much of that is due to kind of miscommunication, I think, and the sort of project and program management between Aveva and SafeNet. I kind of expect that because it's quite a difficult thing, token-based licensing, particularly when we've got a system that has worked and we're now re-engineering it. So you've got all the sort of complexity around that, and you're bringing in a new licensing technology. So it's not all plain sailing, but at the moment we've got no customer-facing problems. So you could say everything's fine. But, of course, when you open a box, there are some things that aren't quite so fine. But they will be.
Thank you.
Yes?
Why did SafeNet win your competitive or evaluation process against other vendors?
Well, pretty much because of the things I said a little bit earlier. They've got a track record in security. You've heard some stuff about that today. That's a really key thing for us. They have shown commitment and a willingness to learn about our processes, to understand how we work, to really get under our skin, which is something that the others in the race for the contract didn't do as well. So it's really things like that. It wasn't based on price or anything like that. It was about the quality of the service that would be provided.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Yeah, of course you can.
Did they meet the timeline that they suggested you would see on the outset?
Not exactly. There have been delays. It's like with any project, there have been some delays. Much of that has been around perhaps misinterpreting what the requirements really said. Perhaps it's partly our fault because we haven't actually checked that they understood and saw things from the same angle. All those kinds of things. Do you want to add anything to that, James? Yeah.
I think as far as the RMS integration and deployment, they hit the mark in terms of time, and that's the product they know. I think.
There were a number of areas that we found that we didn't have the resources ourselves to do in our back office systems and license generation system. And SafeNet stepped up to the plate to help us with those. And probably not in terms of their core area, but their commitment to that has been 100% in terms of getting those projects in. As Bob says, I think there's a lot of complexity in there, and sometimes you don't meet the milestones because we probably didn't give some of the right direction, or sometimes it wasn't taken clearly. I mean, you live and learn, I think, really. But I think as far as RMS is concerned, they hit the mark on that. And the key requirements for us are to be able to support the current models that we've got. And that's the complexity, because you're taking out another system, putting in a new system. It's like we want change, we want development, but we want everything to be the same. And that's one of the difficulties. Starting off with that, but also giving yourself the foundation then to build on it. So things, as Bob said, about cloud, that's something that we'll look at as well. But the first step is to get in the systems, get rid of the risk that we had, which was out-of-date, end-of-life technology that some of it we weren't aware of. Some of it we knew we were pushing against the edge in terms of certain pieces of technology that we were using. It offered us no flexibility. And RMS gives us that flexibility. It gives us a firm foundation to build on. And I think, as Bob said, it wasn't down to price, it was down to one of the key things that I found quite hard when I joined with the other provider. We're not mentioning any names, but the other provider, there wasn't that collaboration. Everything was modularized, and we want a solution. Okay, you can take the modules and make a solution. However, as a customer, you want simplicity, and you want that confidence that the solution will be provided. And I think that was a key part for our decision making, I think. It's always easier to stay with what you know, even if it's not a nice relationship in terms of with your provider. So actually taking that step, you've got to have extra confidence to do that first step, I think.
Any other questions? Oh, yes?
The token-based licensing is what percentage of your revenue, would you say?
Well, at the moment, not very much, because with token-based, we had to sort of shelve it because our incumbent technology provider ceased to support the technology which ran token-based licensing. So we effectively stopped pushing that. How many years ago? A couple of years ago, wasn't it?
When I joined, it was 3.5, 4 years ago.
Mm. So it's not really representative, but the demand for usage-based systems, as has been sort of discussed earlier today, is quite enormous, really, because it does help on a number of fronts. It helps our customers understand exactly what they're using, and it helps us to know what they're using and our sales force to understand whether actually we're pitching the right things to the right people in the right way. So it's a win-win all round. So we really do need that back up and running as we move forward. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anything else?
Great.
Okay. Well, thank
Thanks,
you very
Bob.
much.